Hello, everybody. We did it. We made it. We're live on the tubes of you, making sure that all of the lights are appropriate. Clever guy that I am, I know that I stream on Twitch and I stream on YouTube, and I occasionally have issues forgetting to flip the profile in my copy of OBS between one and the other. So after my last stream on Friday, I set myself up with two copies of the hello, Joseph Lyons and Ayush, who I said hi to earlier while we were starting. After the last stream on Friday on Twitch, I set up a second portable copy of OBS configured to be for YouTube so that I would never have that problem again. And then, like a fool, I did not change the link in my launcher and ended up launching the one for Twitch anyway. Smart party. But that issue is all reserved. Hello and welcome everybody to Sublime Text Live number 91. Double checking everything is cool. All systems appear to be go. The laptop over here, the MacBook, hasn't decided yet that it can't talk to iCloud or whatever weird thing. How is everybody doing this fine Tuesday night? And how many people that are watching right now have taken the opportunity to jump into the sweepstakes that we have going on over on the Twitter for winning a copy of Sublime Text and Sublime Merge? This also reminds me that one thing I was going to do and forgot all about was getting something ready to actually share out that link because I'm imagining people might be interested in such a thing. So what we can probably do is copy said link. Perhaps if I could find something that would copy it like so. Awesome. Don't forget, you have one entry for each software for each of the days, and every tweet you add increases your chances of being selected, particularly if you are interested in one or both of them. I'm going to throw this in here right now. That's going to the link, if you've seen the tweets that I have been going out and trying desperately to promote. Because as we all know from my life here on YouTube, I am not that great at self-promotion. I'm trying to get a lot better about this. The gist of this is this link's going to take you to a page on my webpage that has the teaser video that talks about this particular thing. And oh, awesome. Thank you very much, Joseph. And everybody else that is sharing the links, by the way. I've noticed there's been a lot of tweets going out. For those not in the know, Sublime Text 4 was publicly announced March 20th, if I remember correctly, the very day of 2 weeks ago that it was Sublime Text Live. And just as I was getting ready to go live, the official tweet came out. Well, of course, Sublime Text 4 has existed for a while. We've been using it in the Discord for a little over a year now, the year and 4 or 5 months, but it's now being announced publicly, which means there's a release just around the corner. So I thought something I'd like to do is give away a couple of licenses to this to, because I said in my video and I say in a lot of other places, share the Sublime love, because I absolutely love this software. And while I was pondering that, and if this was the time to do that, someone contacted me anonymously, or somebody who wished to remain anonymous, I should say, on the Discord, and said that they love what I'm doing here on YouTube and they would love to be able to contribute some licenses. So from that, I came up with the idea that maybe instead of giving away a couple of licenses, I could give away 3 or perhaps even more. And I mentioned in the Sublime Text Discord, I'm thinking of doing this. Has anybody ever run something like this? And I was contacted by Sublime HQ themselves, who said, basically, don't be silly and spend money for that. You contact us and we will give you the keys. And why don't you throw in 3 Sublime Merge keys while you're at it? And frankly, this completely blew my mind. Getting support of this level from Sublime HQ is incredibly gratifying, as is all the support that I get from people that are routinely watching the videos here on the channel. So that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be giving out 3 copies of each of those. So there's going to be personal licenses. And all you got to do is tweet and share the Sublime Text love. Yeah, so I'm gonna be pushing that in tweets on the regular. I'm trying to find other locations to be able to give this sort of thing out. So if you're interested in this and you haven't already seen it, you can follow me on Twitter. I think I even have a command for that. Let's see. Pretty sure I do. I got so many bots on the run because I was setting one up here and also on Twitch, and I'm making my own. Can't remember. Nightbot seems to take a while sometimes to actually pick up on stuff. Presumably that's going to pop up, but the link that I shared previously, the sweepstakes one, it's going to take you to something that has a video, the instructions for how to enter, and the legal mumbo jumbo that almost did my brain in. The general gist of which is 3 copies of Sublime Text, which is going to give you 3 years of updates. So with Sublime Text 4 right around the corner, if you don't have Sublime Text 4 yet, or you bought your license more than 3 years ago and you're probably going to have to pay an upgrade, maybe now's the time to jump in for something like that. And of course, Sublime Merge as well, the preeminent Git client. Hello, Mike Timko. It is going great this Tuesday night. Slight hiccup getting the stream started because Mr. Fatfingers clicked the wrong button and started streaming on Twitch like a fool, which is only the second time that I've done that out of the 3 times that I've streamed on YouTube. Now, can't remember the exact thing, but in any case, yeah. So that link's going to have all the information on that. And apart from that, how is everybody's day going? It has been an exciting time. I was up rather late yesterday getting everything going. I really should. As I was saying earlier, I went out of the way. I have my OBS set up to do Twitch and YouTube, but there's a couple of things that I need to switch. The chat overlay, for example, being one, and notifications. And I run a portable version of OBS, so all the configuration is stored all in one thing so I can shuffle it around. The thought occurred to me at the end of my stream on Friday on Twitch. What if I just duplicated this directory and renamed it, and then I had one for YouTube and one for Twitch? I configure each of them and then never have to worry about that again, which I did. And then, like a fool, I started the wrong one because I'm used to clicking that button. That part I didn't get around to. Hopefully, this was going to be the last time for something like that. But say it has been, I'm going to say that the reason for that is I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning, my time on Monday, getting everything ready for the launch of the giveaway yesterday. And things have been going fairly well, although I will say Reddit, bit of a jerk. My announcement in the Sublime Text subreddit got flagged for spam for whatever reason, and the people there that moderate haven't responded back yet. But I did find a couple of other places. I am not that great at self-promotion. Let's say everything seems to be nicely stable here, that we jump into a little Sublime Text Live. And that is going to require me to press this button right here, like so. Pause for edit because I the transition that goes there allows the mic to become hot before the screen becomes active. And we can see here, this is actually the first time that I have started build 4102 because I just upgraded to this, even though it came out on the 9th of April. Today was the first time since the 6th of April that I had to restart Sublime and got reminded that I did not have the correct version, which I think goes a lot to say that I have buttons. They're hidden behind the chat up here for starting Sublime Text and Sublime Merge, but Sublime Text is just always running on all of my systems. The fact that I restart it sometimes is a very rare case indeed. Normally when I'm doing plugin development, this was something that we were talking about in the Discord earlier today. And speaking of earlier, while I was doing the final stream prep, Ayush was the first one in the stream who said he was viewing some old streams and waiting for my being live again, and he had some queries. So if you have some queries about Sublime Text, Ayush, or anybody, feel free to throw them out in the chat. And Terminal, hello, sir. Welcome to the stream. I may have mentioned, and I'm not sure that you might have actually even seen this, but the fact that I keep a copy of Sublime running on all of my systems, like literally there's one on that Mac, there's one here, there's one on this one. That computer has Sublime Text, but I hardly ever fire it up. The blue laptop there, CloudBooks running Celeron process, or anything with a Celeron, and Windows 10 on a 32 gig flash drive. Not the greatest. But because stuff is always running, I use Sublime Text as my ability to share data between one thing and another. I actually have a package I created. If I was to, say, grab this text and copy it, Sublinet, which is basically a package that networks all of my copies of Sublime Text together and shares the clipboard with them. So that just sent 446 clipboard characters to all of the systems that are currently running Sublime Text. And then I could go to another system and paste. It adds directly to the history. When this Sublime Text starts, it connects to all of the other versions, and they all ship it their clipboard histories. So that also means that my paste history tends to persist across restarts as well, which is also pretty cool. I like to think anyway. And that's something that we developed over some of the live streams. Is there a better way to get a list of commands for Sublime Merge? Currently, no. That particular thing that you've mentioned there is, if you want to have a list of all of them, the only way to do that currently is to actually look in there. Although, this is something that some people might not know. If you're in Sublime Text, let's just clear the console here. You can type sublime.log commands. Historically, you would say true in here to turn it on and false to turn it off. That is, in fact, should be public on my GitHub repository, on my personal one, I think. If not, I just haven't pushed it, but it's definitely up there. In Sublime Text, one of the most recent builds of Sublime Text, you can just do this without anything in there, and it turns logging on and off. So as you take actions, you can see exactly what it is they're doing, and then doing it again turns it off. So in the context of Sublime Text, if there's something that you can do somewhere in a menu, or that's bound to a key, or in the command palette, you can turn on logging and take the action, and it will tell you exactly what command to use and what the arguments are. This is actually possible in Sublime Merge as well. We have to do it a little bit differently, because although it does have a console, as we can see here at the bottom of the window, it doesn't have a plugin host, so it doesn't have a place for us to actually type anything. But if you were to go to Edit Settings, in the menu here, which brings you to the textual settings, which I have set to open in my Sublime Text, you can see there's an item here called Log Commands, which is the same as the thing that I was just doing down there in the console. If you set that to true, now any action that you take over here logs down there as well. So if you wanted to rebind something from a menu, like say you wanted to bind a key to view tree, for example, you can see exactly what command did that, which for the purposes of wanting to add keys to menu commands or to command palette entries and such can be a handy thing to do. If you want something to just tell you what you could actually bind, then unfortunately, yeah, the only way to do something like that currently is to look inside of the package. Haha! Tater! Hello, Stephanie. How are you doing? You stayed up. I'm going to swap that back before I forget. You wanted to bind fetch to a key. Well, so in that case, we would turn that to true. Click the thing. Now everything we do is doing stuff. Then we can say fetch from the command palette. Say you want to fetch all, for example. And the command for that is fetch. And the mode is fetch -- all in this particular case. Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate the support. Did you stay up late playing GeoGuessr by any chance? So what you could do is bind, in this particular case, fetch to a key to be able to do that. And similarly, if you were to just do, say, for example, fetch from the command palette and just choose the top one, you're going to have to choose a particular origin in that case. So say we wanted to fetch from origin, then you can see what the arguments for that would be as well. Should be good to go for something like that. I'm guessing that something akin to view package file or something is coming. It's just not here yet. And I'm going to swap that back to false because otherwise I get a little confused by this stuff. Yeah. Weird to say. Well, I mean, it's sort of... it considered weird for me to refer to you as Tater for people in the YouTube chat who might not be familiar with who you are on Twitch. But if you happen to be watching this live stream and you also have a Twitch account, you could follow me on Twitch, and you could follow my friend here on Twitch as well. She goes by the name Mashed Potato. Follow me on Twitch, and I will definitely shout her out there. She is a game streamer and just recently got a fancy new computer. So the games, they're going to be kicked up a notch. And I have a special honorific nickname in her Discord server as well. Good times. So that is one question. And yeah, so is there any other way to get a list of every command than looking in those files? The answer to that is no, unless there's unofficial documentation on the Sublime Text community documentation page for merge, but I don't think there is, and I don't think the official documentation has anything about that either. That is not the appropriate application for that. And documentation, there it is. Documentation is in here. That would be over like here. It tells you how to do it, but it doesn't have a list of commands, I do not think. No, it does not. So, currently there is no compiled list of all built-in commands. Name of many commands can be found by looking at blah, 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 which that part you already understand how to do. What I have over here is the most recent. Is there a limitation for it? My guess would be just that nobody has taken the time to do it because they're building other things. I don't think there's any philosophical reason for why that's the case. No. Which is, I think, if Sublime Merge has a failing in my estimation, because it is, I've mentioned that I've been using this as my Git client since day -30 or -60 or something, because some members of the Sublime Text community were tapped to participate in a private beta of this before it was even announced to anybody everywhere. And ever since the very first build of that, way back in the 1000s, I haven't used anything else. And if there's one failing that I think this has as an application that's sort of stopping it from becoming the greatest, in my estimation, it's that it is as customizable as Sublime is with regards to modifying the menus and the command palette and key bindings and color schemes and all of that stuff in the same way that Sublime Text is. But Sublime Text, being a text editor, has more of a built-in ability to actually surface an easier way for you to do that. For example, trying to do something with key bindings is going to open the file, but it doesn't open the default because it's just opening yours, right? Same sort of deal applies. Yeah, I used Gitkraken for longer than that. I think I mentioned in either this last stream or one of the last Twitch streams, I didn't like it primarily because at the time it only had the over-under context diff, and I prefer the side-by-side diff instead. But what actually kept me using it was it had Kanban, project tracker, pajigger, kind of like what you can get in GitHub. And in fact, I think it even synchronized to GitHub. So I was working on some projects in GitHub and using Git plugin in Sublime Text to do the operations, but using Gitkraken to do project management stuff because it had a nicer interface than what GitHub had at the time on their page. But of course, much like trying to make sure that you exercise for 90 minutes a day and eat well and other such things you might tell yourself at the beginning of the year that you're going to follow through for the rest of the year, trying to get organized in that level on a personal project for me or just in general is always a bit of a thing. Indeed. Now, what I love about Sublime Merge is that at any given point, anything you do, be it like a fetch or a fetch all prune or stashing or committing or merging or rebasing or anything, always shows you exactly what command and what Git actually did, which I kind of consider to be a nicer way to also learn some particular commands that you can use here in this software. There are people currently at my place of employ that are using Visual Studio Code, which is more comfortable for them because they're used to using Visual Studio and the way that it manages changes and change sets, which maps onto Git particularly well, I guess. But they're having issues with Git on the whole, and they're using that tool, and I can't really help them with that because I don't understand exactly what it is that it's doing behind the scenes. So it seems definitely the way that you work with that sort of stuff is definitely a personal preference, and they find that an easier way to work. I find merge an easier way to work, particularly as regards looking at the commit graph, particularly on really busy projects. The one for my homepage here, as we can see, is not entirely interesting. Override Audit has a little bit more stuff, and being able to switch that fast is awesome too. That's unfortunate too. One of the issues, and this is if you use Visual Studio to do that sort of stuff, maybe you're in a position to answer this particular question, but the thing that seems to be flexing their noodle most about Git is the concept of branches. And working on this branch while you're making one change and then setting that aside and checking out another branch to work on a bug fix, and then merging changes from one branch into another to bring changes together. Those are all concepts that seem to be foreign to them, even though they've been using Visual Studio, and currently we're using TFS. Prior to that, we're using Visual Source Safe, I think. So I'm not sure what to take from that, if Visual Studio and those other systems just don't have branches, or they've never taken advantage of it and just always had multiple checked out copies of the code, one for each thing. But that is causing a no end of problems. So something like a button that just pushes, pulls, and merges without asking you is definitely asking for trouble. Before Sublime Merge, I was briefly using Gitkraken, like I said, but for the longest time, the thing that I was using was Smart Git, which I came to because we used to use Smart SVN for Subversion stuff a ways back. Something we started doing at work. For reasons I don't understand now, we were doing something that was going to require some access to the code that we forced the company to give us GUI clients. But I cannot for the life of me remember what the reasoning was for that. But if you're in the market for a different Git client, well, shame on you. But also Smart Git might be a place to look as well. Yeah, I mean, if I was to pop open a terminal here and do this, LL DataMill is the name. I think this is still here. DataMill is the name of the software that I work on professionally, and we use Subversion for this, but we've never used branches in Subversion, which comes from the fact that for a long period of time we were using CVS before Subversion was available, and branching was particularly painful in that. So each one of these is a branch, if you will. For each one of these things, whenever we need to make one particular change, we would just check out a separate copy for just that, which is an okay way to work as long as you can manage them. I have a little script that manages all of these various things, but not having multiple people working inside of one branch, I would run away screaming. I mean, when it comes right down to it, terminal saying ouch in there, but it's actually what a branch is, right? Again, the main reason for that was we got into a workflow of how we were going to be doing stuff using CVS way back in the early versions of CVS as well, as far back as like 93 or 90. Well, no, I was actually in school at that point. 97, 99, somewhere in that particular area, probably 1998 is when we started using that. So for CVS and for people, and there are various issues with it just in general. Like once you check a file in, it's in your repository for the rest of creation. Good luck ever getting rid of it unless you go into the attic and whatnot. We just sort of grew a workflow to that. And I think my coworkers are in a similar situation. They have a particular workflow that they have, and they're just sort of trying to continue using that in a different system that doesn't necessarily track with it. But we can keep things fairly clear. And to be honest, around the time I was thinking, why aren't we using branches here? I decided I'm going to look into this Git thing, and I've just never looked back from that point. If nobody else has any particular questions, I have over here a list of the most recent questions that people have asked me across various videos on YouTube. And one of these is by someone named Andy on my video on build system basics, who said, "Thanks for the great videos. Is there a way?" Actually, I'm probably just, whoops, pardon me. I moved my window. I upset the delicate balance. If I click this button, I can make sure that nobody's retinas are burned out, more or less. And, I mean, that looks dumb, but whatever. If I brought this over to here, like so, and did this, look, it's letting me resize windows this time. That's nice. This question is there a way to highlight the build output in a build system as well? And the answer to that question is yes. Do I know of any... Oh, sorry, I just noticed that question. Do I know of any other dark themes for merge? Well, if you're in the Sublime Text Discord, then Terminal just released a couple, I think. If you look in the... I will open the Discord and look in the Sublime Text, Sublime Merge channel. If we were to look back just slightly, I seem to recall some nice pictures of stuff. For example, boop, these ones right here. Well, I guess that one's probably not a dark theme. But these are, apart from the themes that ship, there you go. Apart from the themes that ship directly with Sublime Merge, I'm not aware of any others, because I've just always used, I've always used the dark theme for Sublime Merge, except for the interminable period of time before the dark theme was actually implemented. Way back in the pre-beta private days, there was only one theme. It was a white theme. It wasn't even the light theme that we have right now. And there was theming capabilities. And as a matter of fact, Randy3K, who you may know from Terminus fame, actually worked up a nice dark theme that we were using for a while. But yeah, these Medio themes for Merge. If YouTube will allow you, feel free to drop a link in there. If not, it has been a jerk recently about not allowing people to post links, even though links are most definitely allowed. And not only will it potentially stop you from posting the link, it won't even tell me that you tried to do it, allowing me to let it through. In which case, we can get the link to you via Discord or other locations. Because I'm not entirely sure how you go about installing these. Indeed, I have seen a lot of ire on that over the years that Sublime Merge has been out, that the one feature that Sublime Merge doesn't have in the trial period is the ability to make it dark, and you have to use it light instead. So instead of looking like this, we'll just resize that window slightly, maybe. Or maybe it's not going to let me do that. Oh, there's not even a UI theme option in there, is there? It's over in here. This is how frequently I do this. Oh, I guess the light theme is lighter than I thought. Well, shows what I know. That's how long it's been since I've used this. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that Sublime Merge is impossible to use and impossible to trial because the most important feature of your Git tool is the ability to display dark colors. Now, personally, am I a fan of this theme? No, I'm not. I much prefer the dark theme. But I could live with this long enough to use it and realize that it is of immense help and a great tool before I threw my money down. That's just me. Yeah, exactly. You gotta support the developers of the software that you love. Open source software is great, but there are people that make their living doing closed source development like this, and the way that you show your support and allow developers to pay their employees is to support them in the work that they do. I've never used fork. There's also something called I'm guessing it's called Magit, or maybe it's called Magit. I don't know. I think it's like it's a Git client that's text mode that's meant to be embedded in an editor. I want to say Emacs because that sounds like the sort of spoopy thing that I would be less interested in. People raved about it, but it wasn't something that I could run. Or maybe it's something that was only Mac OS. For me personally, because I do have systems I'm running Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, just even here on this one desktop, portable software that crosses platform boundaries is an absolute must for me, which is why I love Sublime Text, because if I didn't have something like this, I'd have to use an Electron app like Code, which is, well, personally, I have a hard time using it because it's almost like Sublime, but it also reminds me of IDEs that I've used, all down to personal preference, right? Fork, no. Source tree, maybe. Then Magit. There was something about it that stopped me from using it, and I'm guessing either it was written in Lisp for use in Emacs, or it was Mac OS only, or Windows and Mac only and not Linux or something, although that would be a very weird mix. You would imagine if anything supports Mac, it probably also supports Linux. Particularly if it happens to be a text application. Yeah. I try not to use Electron apps. There's a couple that I do use. One is Discord, and the other is NoSQL Booster, because it seems like any tool that is going to be talking to MongoDB is going to be written as a web application and ends up being Electron. Or they're not, but they're not cross-platform. At least none that I've found. Although there was mention in one of the Twitch streams recently of another tool that I have been meaning to look at and did not get around to. This is something that... call this test build. Someone asked recently in a question on the channel, which is the ability to colorize the output of a build. Because if we were to choose this and then choose the name of this file that I just created, which I've already forgotten, test back, that's going to be way down here. If I was to run this, the build output is just the standard text color, right? It is actually possible to get syntax highlighted build output here. And we go a little something like this. You need just a syntax key, and then you provide the name of a syntax to use. Now, for our case here, this is the part where you might need to know a little bit about Sublime and how it works. But for our case here, if I was to view.settings.get and get the syntax setting, we can see the name of the syntax that is currently applied to this file right here. So remember, the build output that we saw previously was just plain text. But if we were to throw this in here, and I did everything correctly, when this runs, we end up with syntax highlighted output here, including this being an error, in which case you might want to say something like quiet true to stop it from displaying those sorts of diagnostic informations. Oh, there's word wrap is turned on. Pardon me. This can be a very handy thing. If you could come up with a syntax definition for the output that a build process is generating, you can do get some really cool stuff here. There's probably packages that do that. In this particular case, yes. That actually might be enhanced in Sublime Text 4, now that we say it. Because the reason we can do a little something like this. The example it defaults to plain text, which is why you get plain text output there. But if we were to look here, it's using assigned syntax. I'm pretty sure assigned syntax wants something like that. We could actually give that a little bit of a test. Oh, go away, you. I'm pushing the wrong key. The scope here is source.json. Let's say we threw this and said scope source.c++, for example. Let's say source.c. There you go. So yeah, the way that it assigns that actually probably would work in Sublime Text 3 as well. Easiest possible way to do that. I'm not sure how many people know about that particular trick either, being able to specify a scope by that name. There was recently a bug fixed in, I think, one of the Sublime Text 4 builds, because this also works in other cases too. Like, for example, here, notice when I did this and I got the syntax and it says it's Python, you can set settings too. You can set this syntax to something like scope source.c, and now the syntax of this is C instead. But notice that down here in the status bar it says scope : source. Hello, Ashwin. I thought that was actually a bug that was fixed, but perhaps not. Or maybe, oh, sorry. That one is my bad. If you're going to set the syntax for something, you would need to do something like this. Assign syntax source. Scope source.c, for example. Now it'll work as expected. Well, I mean, giving me the soft blur of 144p, Hello, Girish. Welcome to the stream. And hello, Ashwin. How you doing? How you guys doing this evening? Reminder, as we gather more people in here, that if I was to scroll this chat way back up, because I am not at all prepared for this bit of operation, that I am currently running on the channel. Holy crap balls. Well, that's way more stuff than anybody ever needed to see. Maybe we won't do it that way. Maybe we'll do it this way instead. Maybe we'll do this and say that thus we are running a syntax. Sorry, I've read two things there. We are running a sweepstakes to give away copies of Sublime Text and Sublime Merge. If you're, for some reason, watching this live stream and you're unfamiliar with that fact, follow the link. Win yourself a copy of the software that we're using here today, Sublime Text and Sublime Merge. Is there a tutorial? Is there a breakdown of what scope : source.c means? This part is the scope that is assigned by the syntax. We could go into why that's there. And this disambiguator is in here to let the code know that this is actually what this is supposed to be. So if we did something like this, it doesn't know what this syntax file actually is. Normally what you would do, again, is something like what we saw up there. We could say something like, oh, and you saw me do this, setting the syntax variable to something. As we can see, that works, but you shouldn't do that because this changes the syntax that's associated with the file, but it doesn't apply any syntax-specific settings to it. So if you don't want the syntax-specific settings, that is absolutely fine. But if you do want them, and normally you do, don't do that. You would use assign syntax. And this is really something that's really only of interest to people that are developing packages, by and large. So that doesn't work, but this does. So this tells it that to the thing that we're giving it is a scope, and the scope is source.c. Please find the syntax associated with that and use it. And then this ends up being a C file, like so. Yeah. Those are the two ways to do that. View.assign syntax and view.set file type, but set file type is deprecated and you should use assign syntax, although really behind the scenes the one just calls the other, so no big deal. Apart from that, the ways to change the syntax are to specifically change the setting that's associated with it, but that won't do what you want. For example, we could do something like this. Let's do that again and open this. So we can see here that this is a Python file. I have Python-specific settings that add rulers at column 79 and column 80 so that I can, I'm not sure, hopefully those show up in the stream. I'm not entirely sure. Just for verification purposes, we could say this. What is the value of the rulers setting? And the answer is 79 and 80, right? If I was to say view.assign syntax, like so, and give it the scope source.c, the scope change, you can see there's now two rulers instead of one, or they're farther apart, and when we ask for the ruler setting, it's 80 and 110. So using assign syntax, change the scope to source.c. This is considered a C file now, even though it's Python code, and the rulers were changed. What we could also do is say view.settings.get syntax. If you did this, it would tell you exactly what syntax file this was associated with, which might make you think, I can just set that setting. And you can do this. You might be able to say, for example, packages python.sublime-syntax. And now, if I go up here, we'll note it's Python code now, but the rulers are still wrong. The rulers are still the rulers for C code. So you don't want to do something like that to flip the variable unless you know for sure that you don't want to actually apply the settings. Yeah, there you go. If we were to actually look in HyperHelp, this one is actually undocumented, and set syntax file says, it's deprecated, use assign syntax instead. The deprecation notice there comes directly from the plugin file. That's going to be a view. So if we were to look at the API file for, let's say, Sublime plugin, no, that would be this one. For, let's say, the Python 3.8 runtime, and we look for assign syntax, there's two definitions of it. This is the one that gets called, and if you use set syntax file, it's deprecated, but it just calls the other one anyway. Let's see if I missed some stuff here. I'd be very interested in seeing Sublime HQ do a terminal application. Yeah. Are you the one that was talking about that in the Discord? That seems to be something that's been going around as well. Oh, and sorry, Stephanie, I missed your message there. Thanks for the support showing up in the stream. We'll see you in your Twitch stream next, or maybe I'll see you in my Twitch stream tomorrow if you stay up late playing games again. Yeah, exactly. The whole situation that someone would really like Sublime HQ to create a terminal application, and I'm still riding for non-linear video editing software. For no reason other than anything that Sublime HQ makes is awesome, and apart from creating plugins and using Sublime Text and Sublime Merge for my stuff, the other thing that I tend to do is edit videos. I'd love to use Sublime software for that one. So to recap that whole little bit of stuff there, if you wanted to have a build system that colorizes the output that it generates in some fashion, you can do that by adding a syntax key, and you can do that in a few different ways. One way to do something like that would be to use the full name of the syntax, as in the ones that we saw here, packages, python.sublime syntax. The easiest way of which to find something like that is to open a file of that type, come into the console and use view settings, get syntax, just like this right here, which would give you this variable, and then you can plop it in there. And as we can see, you can actually just use scope with a colon and then the actual scope. And again, in that case, if we wanted to, again, make this file, when it's displayed, look the same color as it is here, we can see that exactly what the scope for this is source.json.sublime.build. So we can change this to scope.json.sublime.build, like so. And when we run the build, it's syntax highlighted down there. I use, well, most build systems that I use are ones that I created myself. Yes. Case in point being, for a long time, well, if I did this, user Sublime build, we can see a few of them. Sometimes I work on C# or C or .NET, so I have ones for those. I have one for Python 3, which basically just executes Python 3 instead of Python for use on Windows and Linux and Mac OS, I should say. On Windows, Python tends to be installed as Python. I have something for Node.js. I have a lot of sample builds in here from various things that I've done. This is one that I created just the other day, TypeScript TS Node, for executing just single file TypeScript applications and JavaScript applications and jumping them out directly. What is the SQL exec one? Let's see. Oh, I'm going to say now, before we even get into this, that way back, prior to the very first videos on the channel where I started doing stuff on a regular basis, which was April 1st, 2019 with the Snappy video, one of the things that I was planning on doing, and still I'm planning on doing, but I haven't gotten there yet, is coming up with an idea for a package or a plugin and doing a series of videos talking through how something like that might work. And one of those is SQL exec. And there's a plugin that's associated with this too. Let's take a look. I haven't looked at this in forever, but the idea behind this is that we would do a video series talking about building a custom build target and how all of this stuff works. And essentially what this does is execute some external command, also allowing you to send selection or not, gather a list of files. Like I said, there's a plugin that's associated with this. The thing about this, and this is actually something that Ashwin worked on in one of his plugins as well. I remember him asking a question about this a ways back. This particular build, when you execute it, requires you to specify what database connection you're going to use. There's currently none configured in this thing. If you don't specify one, it actually prompts you and then reruns the build again. So that's an example of something that was going to be a video series on the channel, and instead it turned into just the video series on build systems and Sublime Text in general, and I did some more generic ones. So I do have a few custom builds like this one, for which I whipped up literally 3 days ago or so, well, 2 days ago, to do something work related. By and large, I would have a project specific build inside of my Sublime project file, but I don't have any examples of those currently to show off that aren't proprietary work things. Ben, hello, welcome to the stream. Apparently you've been quoted. Text rendering for a proper terminal is very different to a text editor, as every glyph is required to be monospace. Indeed, someone was just reiterating the thing that was talked about in the Discord the other day about Sublime's next project being a a terminal software. And Terminal spoke your words and summoned you here into the stream. How's your day going? Personally, also just straight up wouldn't pay for a terminal emulator. Indeed. I wouldn't either, but this laptop over here has a copy of Reflections because a lot of the stuff that the company does is using VT400 VMS terminal emulation. Good to hear. We've just been talking about things like the sweepstakes giveaway and some questions that have been asked recently on my YouTube channel. One question that was asked by someone is, are there any other themes for Sublime Merge? And the answer is yes, these Medio themes that Terminal, I believe, has a large hand in creating, which actually looks quite nice. Don't know of any paid terminal emulator. Boo. There's this. That might not be the correct thing. Hang tight. I can't remember what the name of the company is that runs the thing. Boop. Preserve your legacy investments with the Reflection Terminal Emulator. I'm presuming this thing costs money. And based on the name, I'm guessing it's the one that, quote unquote, we use. Personally, I just use a telnet connection from Linux and set the term as appropriate. But for Windows people, apparently, that sort of thing is hard to come by. I have, I think, iTerm on my MacBook, but it seems to be kind of pokey, but I'm pretty sure that's just because my MacBook is quite old. I don't, as much as I am a terminal guy, I don't use the MacBook enough and do terminal stuff enough to be able to do something like that. Where are these Medio themes actually available, Terminal? Is there like a download? My favorite theme in Sublime is the adaptive theme, which is the one that I'm using right here. For the first few years that I used Sublime Text, I used the default theme because that was just the default. But the thing I didn't like about it was the console area was white and the sidebar in the window also had a white background. The very first Sublime Text 3 build that included the adaptive theme, that's where I switched on board to using adaptive as my theme. And I have fiddled around a little bit with some other themes over the years, like Material and a couple of other ones, but I can never come to terms with what it was that they were trying to do. So I always came back to adaptive. Excellent. The font that I'm using is named Yoshevka, and I feel bad about this because a lot of people ask this, and I meant to include a command for this. The font that I'm using ostensibly is this one right here. Specifically, I'm running Stylistic Set 9, but I also have a slightly customized version of it, and the actual link to the version that I'm using, if you'd like to use this particular one, can be found here. And if you go to that page, it should give you a link to the other one and tell you how my version is slightly different. I use the exact same font in my terminals as well. This is also Yoshevka, but this is the term font. So that zip file, if you download it, that I just linked from my Google Drive, has two versions of the font, one with term in the name and one doesn't. The term one is for use in terminals, and the main claim to fame to that is it doesn't include ligatures, so that things like input redirection look the way that you expect them to. So far, so good. I don't have a count for how many things have been done today. I spent a bunch of time trying to figure out how to pronounce it, but every time I asked Google how to pronounce it, it would just say back the exact same thing I said, so I'm not entirely sure that I'm right, but I'm assuming that it is. I've gotten, well, I'll tell you this. I figured that is everybody in the universe going to jump into this giveaway? Probably not. I was actually kind of worried, would I garner at least 3 people that were interested or have at least 3 people see this thing for each of the 2 Sublime Text and Sublime Merge, because I don't want to be in a situation where I have more stuff to give away than anybody actually knows about. But response has been pretty good. I've gotten more than a couple hundred clicks, I think, on the bit.ly link for people actually looking at stuff. And my phone has been consistently binging with people following me and tweeting out stuff. So on the whole, I think it's going pretty well. It would be nicer if Reddit wouldn't keep flagging my posts as spam because they have the text giveaway in them. But what can you do? I'm putting stuff out on Twitter and a variety of other places as well. So I think it's going to go well. It's already exceeded my expectations, if you will, as these things go. Where's the... There you go. Terminal's got some stuff going. I even double-checked with my script and verified your numbers there yesterday, and it totally worked out. I'm surprised. I've seen a lot of people that are also just, and a couple of them are in the chat tonight. I'd have to scroll back up to see because I can't quite remember, that are just retweeting the announcement as well because they already have all of the software, which is awesome. To know that someone's like, I'm not making entries, but I'm not doing it because I already have them and I want to leave those spots open for someone else. Super cool. I've also been loving what people have been saying in the tweets as well. The next question that I got just 12 hours ago was, it's a sew-on, that logo on the shirt, isn't it? Kind of rimini. Definitely a Pantone color, no CMYK equivalent. No, trust me, I'm not wearing it right now, but that is definitely a shirt that I got printed. I didn't sew that on there, which is, you can tell that I didn't sew it on there because it actually looks like the Sublime logo. I'm not that good at sewing. Back in school, I had to do home economics classes and did not go as well as it could. I mean, didn't go as bad as it could either, because I had a friend whose home ec project in sewing class was to make a pair of sweatpants, and when he sewed the legs together, he forgot to, basically when you do that, you make the 2 legs and then you turn one of them inside out, put it inside the other leg, sew around to get everything all done. He did all of that stuff except for the turning the one leg inside out before he put it in. So when he was done, he had a pair of gym pants with one leg inside out with a pocket on the inside and one leg right side out with a pocket on the outside. And we laughed and laughed. But no, I actually got my shirts custom printed, and they don't sell merch yet, but it's being discussed on the Discord, and one of the things that Will has been investigating is a way to sell merch. The barrier to that is he and I presume nobody else at Sublime HQ wants to take time away from developing the software to worry about fulfilling t-shirt orders and stuff. So they need to find a place that will do all of that so that basically they my gather from what Will said back in the day is they basically want to just give the logo and say these are the products we want, and then step away and have someone do all of the fulfillment and all of everything. And we've given them some examples of places that will do that. So potentially upcoming, he hasn't said anything about it, but with Sublime Text 4, around the corner and time being at a premium, probably focusing on that more for the time being. But is my shirt a sew-on? No, it's not. I got it printed from a place called Vistaprint. Pardon me. Well, Ben, if he's in the chat, could explain more about what the actual tech is, but basically it's hand-rolled C++ for a lot of the internal core. Yeah. Proprietary speed technology. There's speed holes that makes it go faster. Said something about what a couple of streams back, the merch or the tech that makes Sublime so lightweight. I am terrible at subtext. I may have told this story before, but I met my wife online way back in the 90s on IRC, Internet Relay Chat, before it was popular. There weren't dating apps back then because there weren't apps back then because cell phones were still little tiny Nokia phones. There you go, about the merch. Okay. IRC is basically a textual chat, like Discord. She would show up for exactly 7 minutes every night in one channel that I was hanging out in and then disappear. I was absolutely enamored with her, but I assumed anybody that was that funny and that amazing must already be married. So as much as I liked her, I just, treated her like I would treat anybody else. And what really got her attention was she kept trying to flirt with me because she liked me too, but because I do not understand subtext and flirting, she basically had to flat out tell me that she liked me and she was not married in order to get a relationship going. So if there was some subtle subtext in what you and Will were saying, it totally glossed me over. Yeah, the thing that I do know about the tech that Sublime HQ uses is that it's entirely custom. Now, if I remember correctly, you use Skya internally to lay stuff out and use the operating system to lay out glyphs and GL to blit. Hello, Hacky Sack. Welcome. Side addition to the flirting story, fast forward several years, we're married and have been for, however many years, August 26th, 2004 to now is. But when my office used to be in downtown Vancouver, we would go to a food court every now and then to get lunch instead of bringing in sandwiches, and I would go sometimes to a pizza place to get slices of pizza or other Italian food, and then I would relate to her what the conversation that I had with the lady, and she kept saying, that lady is flirting with you. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And then she would outline all of the things that the person said that indicated that she was totally interested in me and was trying to ask me out, but it completely went over my head. We even got to the point where for a long time, every time we got together with a friend, she would say, hey, listen to this and tell me what you think of this, and then relate the story, and then the person would say, oh yeah, he was totally flirting with you. So if I don't need subtext, I need super text. I need you to grab me by the shoulders and shout in the face. Well, like I said, she never said way back that she was married. She never said anything like that. I just assumed in my head that, and I don't know if you follow me on on Twitch, she comes into the chat from time to time. You could actually see for yourself. But the way that her sense of humor is amazing and teasing, hyper intelligent about can have like a good conversation about a lot of stuff. Even a 7-minute conversation, a whirlwind popping in, saying hi, chatting, and going out just leaves you going like, She is like amazing. And she never said, and no one said that she was in any relationship whatsoever. I just conceived in my head that she must be married because it was absolutely and utterly inconceivable to me that someone that awesome could not have already been taken by somebody. But oops. Indeed, and the conversation in the chat here is generally related to C++ and such. This is something that I find interesting as someone that has been a software developer for an extended period of time, because back in the day, all languages were, by and large, compiled languages, right? Pascal compiled to COM files on DOS, C compiled to COM files or executable files, and so on. It seems to be a relatively recent innovation, if you will, to use languages that are interpreted like JavaScript and Python and such. And even though there are JITs that make them faster, I don't think that they can achieve the full speed of native code written in a language that's meant to be bare metal. So there is like a lot of speed to be had from something like that. I'm guessing that one of the dependencies you have is, I want to say, I can't remember what Will said, if it was JSON or YAML as a library. I think the JSON parser is something you have that's custom. I mean, I guess it probably is because you implemented the ability to keep track of stuff. I remember over the years mentions of a few things that you have as actual dependencies. But the thing that always blows me away about it is the full GUI toolkit being home rolled, which is like I think a great way to do a cross-platform application, as opposed to trying to, have you ever seen Full Tick? That is multi-platform, but it makes Motif look good. I'm really dating myself by mentioning that. I heard something recently that Qt is trying to back off of open source stuff as well. I'm not sure how true that might actually be. Indeed. Now, I have mentioned in the past, Mike, I am a sort of a hobby game developer. Not recently, because I've been a hobby Sublime Text person for the last 4 years or so. But for a long time, I was interested in creating little game things and such. And I would almost always do that under Linux. In fact, last stream I showed the source code to one of my projects from 7 years ago, not compiling because I haven't touched it in so long. But creating a cross-platform game like that in a compiled language like C, a little bit of a pain in the butt to get going initially, particularly having to set up development tools across all of the platforms and stuff, which I think Ben can attest to because he's recently been working on the build machinery for Sublime HQ. But I came to the determination that if I'm going to create little game prototypes, I should probably do it in JavaScript because it'll run in a browser and then it'll just run everywhere, or at least it'll run in Chrome, and Chrome runs on all of the systems. So in that for that sort of thing, is it as performant to use JavaScript as opposed to compiled C? Probably not. Not going to matter for anything that I'm creating because I'm not that great anyway, but the ease of that cross-platformness cannot be beat. But also, by the same token, for pure processing power, machine language, but failing that, assembly language, but failing that, a language like C and C++ that compiles as close as possible. Oh, cool. I shall check it out. Hang tight. I'm clicking links. Boop. And, oh. Why is this link not a link? I will copy it and paste it over here. Like so. I'm going to share that here. And I think I have the ability to do this as well. This is what we are looking at here. This looks like something that Terminal has created that is a list of all of the commands. Did you gather this in the same way as I would expect by extracting files and doing some greps and such? Possibly while this stream was running. So was it Mike that asked if there's a list of commands that you can use in Sublime Merge? This would probably be it. Is this just commands? Well, theoretically, some of these, well, many of these probably take arguments as well. But why is Sublime Text afraid to break backwards compatibility with plugins when it comes to M1 development? Well, I'm not sure if there have been builds of Sublime Text 4 released for M1 that have a Python 3.3 plugin host. So in that regard, it's like on the way. Why not use Lua like NeoVim does? Part of the reason for that is, I think, Lua is incredibly slim. One of the defining characteristics of Python as a language is it has a very robust library of standard library, if you will, of things that you can do. Whereas Lua is the polar opposite of that. Lua has the most minimal possible library of code that it deals with because it's meant to be embedded in an application and used as a scripting language. So for that reason, Lua is a bad choice for something like a text editor, because if you want to handle something like encodings and Unicode, you're writing all of that yourself. Whereas for Python, already built in. There's probably a bunch of other reasons for that as well. If you look on the Sublime Text blog, John, way back in the very early days of the Sublime Text blog, probably Sublime Text 1 era, has some articles about doing something like this. But yes, there is currently a build of Python 3.3 in an M1 build for macOS. And LuaJIT doesn't support ARM. I'm surprised by that. We're also discussing this in a different user's stream, but another issue with LuaJIT is that it hasn't been touched in a while, or at least there were a slight schism, if you will, between the authors of Lua, the language itself, which is open source in the sense that you can get the source for it and you can provide patches to them, but they feel no obligation to accept them. They develop everything in-house, including making decisions, and they made some decisions in the language that made the guy that created LuaJIT a little unhappy, and so there's a divergence between what Lua the spec does and what LuaJIT has to say about things. And yes, as Ben is pointing out there, the vast majority of plugins are written in Python 3.3, and particularly anything that uses a native library is going to have problems as well. There's a lot of packages on package control right now that haven't been touched in a long period of time because their authors have moved on to other editors, or they just don't need to be touched because they do what they need to do. They do it well. They're effectively done. It's tempting to fall into the mindset of thinking that if something isn't updated every week or every month or every 2 weeks or something, that it must be dead. But there's a lot of cases where the reason why something hasn't been updated in a long time is because it just doesn't need an update. It's feature complete as far as the people that created it are concerned, and it just continues to work. So if those packages were broken, it's a little bit of a haul to try to repair that many of them. By the same token, I think the sentiments in the Discord seem to indicate that people were thinking that when Sublime HQ said that it's coming, but it's not something they're doing right now, that it was going to be months or years down the road and Apple was going to remove Rosetta support and there would be no way to run Sublime Text at all, which is clearly not the case. Indeed. Well, there is the Sublime Text blog. It's not updated as frequently now as it was in the early days, but I've read through that a time or two and found that quite interesting. It sort of reads as, and I believe at least everything that I remember reading was probably predated even Will being an employee, so it was just all John at the time. There was a lot of information in there about decisions he was making, like why he decided that Python was a nice fit for what he was doing, and why various technical decisions are made. Ben has written an amazing article on MemMap, for example, and why it makes your life good and bad depending on which way you look at certain aspects of that. So those resources are somewhat there. And there's also Will Bond did a blog post on his own blog talking about Sublime Text as well and his time developing it. If you haven't seen that, that would be pretty interesting too. If you follow him on Twitter, you can find that. Pardon me. I'm going to respond to this with boop. Did you try to paste a link and it didn't allow it? I got to look into why. If it, for some reason, I've told it to allow links. It just does not want them to come through, and I don't know why. And you don't see any message when that happens, right? Do you see something like one of the bots got mad and deleted it or something? Because I'm not seeing anything here. And I don't know why. I've checked the setting like 10 times. Yeah, I didn't think so. I do not know. It's not showing. It's not showing up there. It's also not showing in my copy of the chat. Presumably, it's not showing for yours either. I do not know. Maybe we should do a little tech here while this is actually going. Let's see. That looks like a Nightbot that's doing some stuff. And you're the top. The top chatter right now is Mike Timko. It shows up in your feed, but it doesn't go anywhere else? Huh. That's interesting. Let's see. None of those are turned on. Try posting another one. I think Sublime has endured for this long because it is a quality piece of software. I mean, there's a lot to be said for something that takes a task and no problem, Mike. It's just one of the things that the bot happens to mention. I think the fact that Sublime is written the way that it is, using highly performant libraries with an eye more towards performance and being a good general purpose tool instead of being hyper focused into one thing, being highly customizable to the point where we can add our own commands and do things like the thing I mentioned earlier, where I can make my copy of Sublime Text transmit its copy of the clipboard to other copies of Sublime that are just running inside of my house, and it is like blazingly fast. I think all of those things combined are what make Sublime an enduring piece of software. If you use it and you spend the time to learn it and configure it to the way that you want to work. Hang on a second there. I think you'll find that it might take a little bit of time if you're new to it to see the full potential of it and configure it to the way that you want to work. But once you have it configured, it is like so much faster than a lot of other things that if there are people that rate tools based on features and based on usability. I think it really shines in the usability thing, the usability category. I'll post the link again. This is something that Terminal created. This is a list of commands that are available in Sublime Merge, I'm betting, since one of them was fetch. And open in editor. There's also a link to this in the Discord as well. My Discord, not the Sublime Text Discord. Earlier in the stream, someone was asking if there's a way to get at a list of all of the commands in Sublime Merge. And I'm assuming Terminal created this in response to that question. The answer for which was, realistically, the only way to get that information is to look inside of the package files if you want to see a list of everything, or turn on command logging, which we also showed earlier on in the stream. Yep. What time we got? We're doing pretty good here. Let's see. Someone asked, for some reason on Terminus, I'm getting a different version of Python. It's 3.9 on a Mac terminal, 2.7 on Terminus. Even if I activate a conda environment, it loads the wrong Python version. Do you know why that could be the case? I don't think this person got back to me after I made my reply, but as we can see here, the thing that I would consider this to be a problem with the path, because the path that you use in the terminal and the path that Sublime knows about could potentially be different and pointing at different places. And case in point, both Terminus and the built-in exec command that's used to execute builds use bash as a shell to execute things. And if that was the case, then it's possible that if you use Z shell, for example, or Z shell, I say Z shell because I'm Canadian. Pardon me. I'm supposed to say Z instead. That could be a problem. There's also that as well. I didn't mention that here because he said enough stuff to make it seem like he knew what the case was, but that is definitely macOS Python versus Python 3 is one thing. He mentioned. I'm thinking of a different thing here, but that could be one issue, and another one could be a path issue. If you use Z shell, there's a specific place, and this constantly comes up. More than once has come up in the Sublime Text Discord about macOS using Z shell as its shell, and the file that you use to set up your environment may not be the one that Sublime is capturing as well, which can also cause path problems. But nobody got back to me on that one. Here's another common question. How does your video appear in a Sublime Text box like this? Trickery and black magic, and a PNG screen capture with a hole cut in the middle. But this, and Ashwin even linked to a video that I did recently on that one. That was good. I should thumb that one up too. I liked that one, and I love that particular answer. Here's a question. I've been having issues with Sublime. Can you help? Maybe. This is an important thing to point out, that it's a rule unofficially in the Sublime Text Discord. Don't ask to ask, just ask. The reason for that is there's a lot more round trips in getting an answer to your question if you started off by asking if you can ask a question in the first place. Also, your question should be slightly more focused than I'm having issues. So Cruzy, if you have a problem and you can say what the problem is, then we can definitely try to sort that out. But if you just say that you're having issues and you don't say what they are, it's tricky to pull that off. I use PyEnv on Mac. Interesting. Is that similar to the Py file that ships with Python by default on Windows? There is... I can't remember it off the top of my head now. I should try to dig it up. Like the art of asking a technical question, or the art of reporting a bug. One of those two things, I can't remember because they dovetail so nicely. That's, basically say, as me and a lot of people in the Sublime Text Discord and people that are on the Sublime Text forum, we're not being paid to be in those places. We're just taking part in the community and helping people out. So if there are two people that have a problem and one person says, my Sublime doesn't work, or this key isn't doing what I want, but that's all they say, and there's another person that says something like, I'm trying to set up a key binding to do this thing, and it looks like I have the right key set. It seems to be logged properly, but the command's not running, and I'm not sure why, because it seems to be the same command that's used in the menu. Can you help me with that? Given those two problems, you're going to want to go for the one on the right, the one where someone, basically spent more time coming up with their question. But it all comes down to you need to catch the eye of someone that's going to want to help you, which means that you can't come across as someone that wants an answer but hasn't put in any effort to try to find an answer yourself. So trying, at least indicating that you tried, saying what you tried to do to resolve a problem, but it didn't work, is a good way to get someone to pay more attention to your problem. Being able to state it in a way that causes the brain to puzzle at, well, that shouldn't be, basically drawing someone in like a clickbait article is also something that you want to do. There's a real art to doing this sort of thing. Which you gain over time. I think if you're in a situation where you're asking questions, you tend to see that sometimes when you ask a question, you don't really get an answer, and then other times you do get answers, and you sort of get steered one way or the other. This one is unavailable from package control. Isn't it cleared by the Food and Drugs Authority yet? Neither is the HyperHelp package. This is on my snappy context-sensitive help package, which is this video is the very first video. Exactly. I wish I could remember where that thing is, because it had a great treatise on talking about how you write a question specifically to draw a nerd into wanting to ask your question, to expend time out of their day that they could be spending doing any manner of other things. You have to make your question compelling enough to want to spend some time. And I got to say, that seems to happen with startling regularity on the Sublime Text forum, because I went on quite a long run of most of my spare time was answering people's questions on the forum or writing little plug-in examples for people that asked questions that were intriguing. Yeah, how do you do that? Let's see if we can figure that out. Here's an example of something like that. I'm assuming that PyEnv is like the node version manager. Yes. Oh, I see you even said the thing there. PyEnv, is PyEnv the precursor to virtual environments? I don't think that's the one I was thinking of, but we will go there because I have a browser. I'm going to see if I can break the code. If you're showing an interesting problem, it involuntarily drops everything else to work on it. I see the nerd sniping. Yes. Oh, man. We used to spend so much time going through the what if section on this. I got to get Randall's book. I don't think he's probably got more than one now. I got to say, when we were in an office with two of us, we spent a large quantity of time goading each other into reading things like XKCD and Penny Arcade and Giant in the Playground. Another great webcomic thing, Dungeons and Dragons related if you're into that sort of thing. And now that we work in separate locations, there seems to be less of that. Just the other day, someone shared something from Penny Arcade, which reminded me of the good old days of going down the hole of trying to read through the entire archive. This video here, snappy context sensitive help, which is this. This is the help for build systems, but and I also have it for plugins and such. It's the very first video that I dropped on the channel that was intended to be the start of a regular run of videos, because I did have one or two before that. I think the scopes and scope selectors is like one of the first, and then there was a really long period of time, and then I decided, you know what, you got to do this. This is something that comes up a fair bit in streams as well. Perfection is the enemy of getting anything done. Can't quite remember how that goes now. Basically, if you have a certain vision in your head of how something should work and you wait until you get the ability to do that before you do it, you'll never do anything. Perfection is the enemy of progress. That is the setting, the saying for that. So I decided I'm just going to actually make videos, and they're probably going to be bad, but I'll get better at it over time. The HyperHelp video was the very first one of those on April 1st. That was on purpose. That set the stage for what has been the longest run in my personal history of weekly videos on Sublime Text, and on the channel in general as well, which is a pretty good accomplishment, I think, coming up with that many things and keeping it up. And it was also a little bit of a joke that April 1st was the day that the first video came out. Interesting. I was just looking into VM yesterday because I was trying to do something and it wasn't working the way that I intended it to, and it turned out that I was an idiot and I ran the command without putting a 3 on the end of Python, and it was doing the wrong thing. The best is the enemy of good. Yeah, there you go. I refuse to use NVM. I'm going to have exactly one copy of Node.js on my system, and that's it, because life is too short. I already have an entire copy of the internet at large for every Node.js project. I'm not having a different version of Node.js for every project, too. I got to draw the line somewhere. I'm a grumpy old man. But yeah, perfection is the enemy of good is definitely something that if you want to be a content creator or even a developer, it applies to all sorts of things. You need to embrace that particular thing. There's a standard in your head that you'd like to reach. If you wait until you can reach that standard, you'll never start doing the thing, because it's always going to be just slightly higher than you can attain. You have to start doing it to get the practice, to get better, to get to the level where you want it to be. And even now, after all these years, I'm still chasing what I would ultimately love my videos to look and sound like. I'm getting better every time. Firebase wants an old version of Node. I'm on record as being cranky about the Node.js ecosystem in general. Oh, I'm thinking of Fire Camp. Never mind. I was just going to say, do you even need Node for that? But yeah. I mean, as a C developer, I'm well aware of the issue of there's a library that you need and your code expects there to be a particular version of that library installed, and it is a gigantic pain in the rump if that version of the library isn't installed. If it's not there at all, code's not going to compile. If there's a different version there, it might compile and then crash or fail to link or things like that. So I definitely get the cleverness of the idea of what if for every project. You just vendored the version of every library that you need, and then you know that it's just always going to work, and you can go to the step of upgrading things. I think Node.js takes that and ramps it to the nth degree, which, I don't know, like I said, I'm a grumpy old man, but it shouldn't take 200 megs of Lord knows what for a simple application that doesn't tend to seem to even do anything. It seems like there's just too many packages. We're spoiled for choice. Why, back in my day, we didn't have that many libraries, and we liked it. We loved it. Actually, we didn't, but, you know. Oh, you joke about that, but I'm vaguely unhappy because there's rumblings going on that the project that we're working on right now needs to be part of someone's white source / Fortify / some other thing I can't remember scan. And we're already crunched for time to finish this thing as it is. We don't have the developer resources it's going to take when someone decides that 12 levels nested deep in something we're using, there's something that has some obscure security vulnerability. Is the left pad situation the one where the grumpy guy took his package away and crippled the entire Node ecosystem? I was not using Node.js for anything at that point. So from my perspective, we kind of chuckled about it. Like, wow, man. You know that you've built your operation on a fairly brittle house of cards when someone petulant can take their basketball home and suddenly the NFL isn't allowed to play games anymore. But, you know, we learned a valuable lesson there, didn't we? That sort of thing is being a little bit salty, you know, a consistent issue. Has anybody used the new Node? I can't remember what the name is now. Someone will remind me, I'm sure. I just remember the story that one of the original developers of Node came back to it and realized what terrible design decisions he'd made. And then Dino, there you go. Yeah. Has anybody used that at all? I've heard of it. I've never actually done anything with it. Which is better, Jedi or Anaconda? Based purely on issues that I've seen people have with both of those two packages, Anaconda is probably a better choice than Jedi. Jedi seems to have more functional issues that I've seen people report, like not being able to type open parentheses properly, whereas the issues you tend to have with Anaconda is it lints when you don't expect it to and you get white boxes everywhere. That said, I would recommend, if you're looking at either Jedi or Anaconda, that you look at Python or LSP instead, and the LSP Pyrite helper package, which is going to do both of those, the things that both of those packages can do and more, and it's more actively developed than both of those two things. And it is enhanced for Sublime Text 4. He endorses Golang now? There you go. Yeah. LSP, PyLS. Do you have, I'm only aware of LSP Pyrite. As a thing. I think that's the one that we were playing with previously. But yeah, I would, for anything code intelligence related in this day and age, I would recommend LSP for that. And there's probably a server for it, because you can use basically the same ones that are implemented for Visual Studio Code. You can use in Sublime Text instead. 10 things I regret about Node.js. I'm going to make a note of that. Here, I'm going to actually I'm going to drop that in the Discord, in the YouTube channel, like so. We'll say, and then I'll be able to come back to it later. I'm going to assume that is going to work. Oh, I have a message here. Oh, I just noticed a link here too. Let's do, boop. This is also something, Ashwin shared this to me in a private message. Hopefully it's okay to share this on stream. Seems like it's something that you probably want to share. You might have even have said it in the chat that it's been going along. Is this a list of Sublime Merge commands by any chance? Commands when they were added. Nice. I'm going to throw a link to this in the chat as well. More information on this. And because it has been a little bit since I did it, Bavesh, thanks Terminal, don't we have a trial version of Sublime Text 4? Indeed we do. If you don't already have one, I am running a giveaway. Yeah, there's an LSP for Sublime Text 3. It's not quite as awesome as the version for Sublime Text 4. There's been a lot of back and forth between the Sublime developers in the Discord and the LSP developers in the Discord, and the needs of LSP has shaped some of the API in the new version of Sublime Text to make integrating with language servers and adding this intelligence be more performant and work a lot better than it does in Sublime Text 3. So there's many reasons to use Sublime Text 4 instead of Sublime Text 3, this just being one. Also, it's just cooler in general. And all the cool kids are doing it. Pardon me. What else? This is sort of a weird question where, let's see, I want this terminal for my Sublime Text, which is interactive and better than REPL. How can I get that? And the answer is this video that you're looking at right now is the one. Awesome. Don't forget, you can put in entries every single day all the way up until the end for the chance to win. Something I didn't actually mention in the video or in any of the tweets thus far. We'll see how the week goes, but my initial plan and thought is that the first live stream after the giveaway period closes would be where we would do the draws live right here on stream, sort of split them up over the 2 hours, first merge, then text, then merge, then text, then merge. I didn't say it specifically anywhere yet because I wanted to make sure that it's something that I could actually pull off and have, work in a seamless manner on the stream. So I need to, work on that and maybe do a couple of dry runs to work out how it might actually go. So no promises on that yet, but I would love to do that live, and then you can actually see right then and there if you are one of the lucky winners. And maybe it would be a cool video for the channel as well to take those parts of the live stream and clip them all out. Who can say? It is a weirdly regular occurrence to get a question where someone asks a question in a video that's actually answered in the video who they are commenting on. And my response to that is generally, this video that you're looking at right now is totally has the answer for that. Now, I do need to go back through some of my older videos because they don't have the same table of contents as newer ones do. But, life conspires with all of the stuff that is going on. Here's a question by the same person. What terminal are you using currently? And we could cover that here. If I was in Sublime Text, I would be using Terminus, and this is just using Bash here. On Windows, I have it set to use PowerShell, and on Mac it would be Bash as well. For things that I do in an actual terminal, I use the terminal this is just the XFCE4 term because I use XFCE's window manager with the Yosepka font that we shared earlier, which is the terminal that I use here. Under Linux, I have iTerm2, but I don't really do a ton with it. And under Windows, I tend to use Commander running just command.exe, I guess, but it's kind of enhanced by conemu. But something that Hacky Sack, who may still be here in the chat, I'm not sure, and who's also in my particular Discord, which I'm not sure if I've set this up in all of the bots, so we'll see. I have too many bots going on. I got to clean these things up. But he put me onto Windows terminal running command, so that's what I use there as well. So my answer to this question actually slightly changed since this question was asked 3 weeks ago. Commander on Windows as my terminal choice, and XFCE4 terminal on Linux. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. That actually works. Good job, Nightbot. You took us slow, but you got there in the end. Yeah, I mean, and this is one of those, terminals is one of those things, it really seems to be like, to some degree, the editor wars of yore, like VI versus Emacs or tabs versus spaces. What do you use for a terminal? Do you use command prompt on Windows, or do you use PowerShell, or do you use Git Bash and stuff like that? And to a similar degree, do you have a terminal that you use directly inside of your tool of choice, like Sublime or Code, or do you craft build systems, or just always use some sort of external terminal like these ones? And that is one of those things that is, very much up to the workflows of individual people. They all work different ways, right? By and large, I use this sort of terminal if I'm doing any sort of what I would refer to as a lengthy operation. And by that I mean, if I was only interested in copying a quick file or taking a look at something, I would definitely use Terminus for that, and go into my local bin directory or my local directory and find all of the myriad copies of Sublime Text to be able to say, yes, I do have build 3109 here, and then go away. But if I was going to actually compile some code or something like that, or I would use a terminal like Yaw to do it instead. When it comes to building software that I'm using in Sublime, I tend to use a build system for that because I can just hit a key, and I use Terminus in cases where it might need to be interactive or display a color or have some sort of terminal, like if it needs to redraw the screen. For simple builds, it'll just be a regular build. I know some people prefer to always run things manually in a build, in a terminal outside of Sublime. Also perfectly cool. Of course, on the channel, there's a playlist on interactive builds. One of them tells you how to build any build system with Terminus, how to convert it, and then there's also how to make a build system under Windows, Linux, and Mac OS that spawns an external terminal, which unfortunately uses the terminal app on Mac OS because that's the lowest common denominator for anybody that has a Mac is going to have the terminal application, so that'll definitely work. Sort of a future to do to get iTerm2 to execute a build like that. Yeah, Hacky Sack turned me on to terminal for Windows. Basically, he just said, hey, this is really cool. And I said, is it? Let's see. And then I thought, oh, yeah, all right, yeah, it is. So that was literally just a couple of days ago. I think before my Friday stream, I was sort of setting that up a little bit. So this particular system over here doesn't have that set up yet, but it will soon. It seems to start PowerShell faster than other versions of PowerShell start, which is weird. I can't imagine why it would have any effect on anything. Maybe that's just some sort of bias because the window looks so cool. Who can say? I I gotta be honest, I don't do a lot of Windows development. Everything that I have done for the past 20 years has been under Linux using Objective-C and C in combination, or packages for Sublime Text, which are written in Python, which works the same everywhere. I do have a Windows machine here and I do development on it, but everything that I've done in the last year and a half has been Node.js stuff. So all else being equal, I do it on my Linux computer here because I have a nicer keyboard than the laptop has and a bigger monitor, and it's not Windows. I just find the environment a little bit more productive for myself. I do use Windows to do stuff. I have not done anything code compiling with it in a really long time. Not It wouldn't be as bad for me on this system because it's a work computer that has Visual Studio installed, but the blocker for me always was that there's not just a GCC or some equivalent thereof that just ships with for the purposes of compiling code. One of my favorite series on Pluralsight was Play by Play, where an expert dev worked on some code. Well, if you're interested in that sort of thing, are you following me on Twitch? Mike? Because if you're not, you might find that interesting as well. I don't think I have a... I might. We'll see. Right, there you go. I knew it seemed familiar. I've mentioned in the past I'm terrible with names. I actually do have that. Yes, I remembered that. But yeah, I've been enjoying streams there. I've also found that there was a guy that he's a little bit of an older gentleman, white beard, indoor tilly hat, giant glass of beer in the middle of the day, swearing up a storm at broken code. He seems like a long-lost code soulmate. There's a lot of cool people doing development. Thank you so much for that follow. I stream on Twitch Wednesdays and Fridays in this same time slot. So this time tomorrow, you can watch me fiddling around with other code, still in this exact same environment, but on a different streaming platform. It's exciting. Interesting. Yeah, the last time I did anything Windows related, WSL wasn't really a thing, I don't think, because we're talking like long ago. I have done a slight modicum of C# development for some stuff for work, but I did it on this system under Mono, and then when I was done, I moved the code over to the Windows machine and compiled it there. So for those projects, there was two or three of them. I used Visual Studio Code exactly or Visual Studio rather, not Visual Studio Code, the full-on Visual Studio professional bloody something, to just long enough to create the solution and all of the related files, and then I zipped them all up and brought them over to my Linux computer, added everything that I needed there, hand modified all of the project files to include the new stuff, and then when I was done, moved it back to Windows, made sure that it would compile there as well, and checked it into their source control system. Now, of course, I was using Git locally as well. Subversive. Can't do graphical applications without some hacky workarounds. Yeah, that's something that has been on my list of things to fiddle with for a while, particularly WSL and doing something in Sublime with it, because it does come up from time to time, someone asking, how can I run this build from Sublime here in the Linux subsystem? I'm not even sure if that's possible, but I've never even used it enough to be able to know one way or the other what sort of advice to give for something like that. Ubuntu WSL doesn't have systemd for some reason. What? No system D? Oh, snap. uh, but cool. I'll be happy to see you tomorrow, Creative Mente. Do you use the same username on Twitch as you use here on YouTube? You can sort of use Windows Sublime Text with WSL. Oh, look, Mike might be cracking the secret here. My go-to answer for people asking that is there something that you can type in the Windows command prompt to make something happen? Because in that case, it's pretty easy to make it happen, but I don't know for sure exactly how that all plays out. Like, does it have its own file system that's distinct from the Windows file system, or does it mount the Windows file system under its own namespace? Just like me, I own my brand. I even have a Snapchat account, I think, just in case a meteor falls out of the sky and clonks me on the head. I don't have a TikTok account, though, so you won't see me dancing anytime soon. Got to draw the line somewhere. I'm not entirely sure what we're even going to be working on tomorrow. I think finalizing the bot code. I've been working on creating a Twitch bot, and I want to replace what I'm using Nightbot for with my own bot, and then I can move it over to my server and let it run on its own there and work on other cool stuff. Yeah, that is sort of an interesting turn of events, isn't it? I wonder why they don't ship compilers with like the Visual Studio compiler tool suite thing. Like, it doesn't necessarily even have to have the GUIs, just like CL and NMake and what have you. Why do they not include that as part of the operating system? Or why is it that the download, last time I checked it, was ridiculously big, and it's just one of those things where it starts asking you questions that make you like concerned that it's going to be fiddling stuff in all kinds of places. Like, I just want there to be a folder on my D drive that has a compiler in it that I add to the path. Why does everything have to be on the C drive? And things of that nature. I'd really love to know why that is the case. Like, if you have .NET runtime installed, ostensibly you have the ability to compile .NET code. And doesn't that come on Windows now? Are they afraid that if they add an extra gig to the disk load, no one's going to want to install the operating system? Wow. Yeah, exactly, right. It's just the flip side of that is using MinGW, which is also kind of funky because it seems like it hasn't been updated in several years, which again could be just because there's nothing that needs to be updated there. Or maybe I was looking at the wrong thing when I did that video a couple of months back. But also, my virus system or scanner, in any case, flags absolutely everything that falls out of the MinGW GCC compiler as something that has a potential Trojan, and then it quarantines it away. So your experience with WSL is generally positive then? Because again, it's something that I've been meaning to look into for a couple of years now, but it's never floated to the top of the pile of stuff. But I mean, clearly I love Linux. Why not add peanut butter to my chocolate, such as it is? Oh, there's a link in the Discord. Boop. Do not change Linux files using Windows apps and tools. Well, that's the sort of thing you want to see for something like that, isn't it? Also, welcome Solly May and Creative Mente to the Discord. Since I just happened to look in there. There is there's a slight red dot that appears up in this area here behind the chat, but I tend not to look into the Discord during a stream unless somebody calls it out. It would be elegant to just be able to SSH into. Yeah, that would be kind of neat, wouldn't it? Is it? I'm guessing it's very functionally similar to Chrome OS and its Linux container system. Which you can't SSH into, but is also fairly cool. Hello, yes, this is indeed Sublime Text 4. In fact, this is build 4102, which just came out a couple of days ago. Pardon my microphone access. Yes, indeed, crostini. Always makes me hungry, and I'm not entirely sure if that is actually the food or it's just something else. But beyond excited to be able to run Sublime Text on and Sublime Merge on my Chromebook. Although I'm currently running Sublime Text 3 on them and not Sublime Text 4 like I am here, because I'd have to update the tarballs manually, and while I do that here on my Linux system and prefer it on my Chromebook, I want to be able to have that update auto-magically, so I'm going to wait until the public release before I start using it there. But yes, this is indeed Sublime Text 4 build 4102. We've been using it on live streams for a year and a while. Sometime soon, I would say yes. Actual date, unknown. But on March 20th, Sublime HQ tweeted out an official teaser video that showed some just a slight taste of some of the new features, and that's the first time it was publicly acknowledged on the internet at large, as opposed to just on the forum and the issue tracker and in the Discord and in Reddit when people ask various questions and such. So in that regard, I would say that it is indeed coming sometime soonish, although soon could still be 2 or 3 months from now. Who could say? Only the developers know for sure, and they won't know it's done until they've finished doing it. So, indeed. Are you in the official Sublime Text Discord? If you are and you have a Sublime Text 3 license, the builds are available there. Oh, I guess you said you haven't been following them for a while, so yeah. You can open the file in Sublime by navigating to... Nice. You know what would be interesting there? That project that I did as my Devember project a few years ago now, that was my experimentation with using .NET, as a matter of fact, .NET 2, which was a server written in C# that you could run on any system, and a plugin in Sublime Text and a custom build target, which when you trigger a build would gather up all of the files in your current project that haven't been changed since the last time you did a build, ship them over an internal network connection to that server, tell it to run a program to do a build or whatever, just like a normal build would, capture standard output and standard error, and proxy it back to the main build panel so you can see the output of your build happening in real time as it's done. Something like that would probably be handy for being able to be in Windows and execute a build inside of the Linux system using Linux GCC on files that are natively stored in there. That might be something fun to play with. Would require me to do Windows development though, so that's sort of a thing. But that was a Devember project from 2 or 3 years ago now at this point, where I wanted to get a little bit more into C# code using .NET 2, which was the style at the time, because I thought I was going to be moved from my Linux part of the company to the Windows part of the company that was using C#. But that never actually came to fruition, and instead it ended up being a Node.js thing. A Docker-based build system? Well, I'm going to tell you, the thing that I like about Docker, I don't really have anywhere to go with that. So personally, I'm not a fan. But that would probably work as well. Yeah, there you go. See? Now, my reason for wanting to do that particular project was to get familiar with .NET, but also if I was going to be writing C# code, I thought for Windows specifically and graphical applications specifically, which are not something that you could do with .NET 2. I don't even think .NET 3. Maybe .NET 3 later versions of it had GUI support. I can't remember, but the last time I looked into it, which admittedly was a little while ago, you couldn't make a cross-platform GUI application. The display frameworks weren't available on anywhere but Windows, and even then not in .NET. But it was .NET 2 at the time, and my thought was, I'm going to have to write all of this C# code. I should get more familiar with it, and I want to be able to develop and run the software on that computer, but from here, so I don't have to use that one, which was a different one at the time than it is now, because upgrade cycles being what they are. But after the end of the project, it just sort of fizzled because I got pulled off of that and into something else. I didn't think it was a unique thing, though. It was a lot of unique, fun problems to solve, mind you, coming up with the protocol for stuff like that. I bought Sublime Text 3 years ago, used it for years, but ended up migrating to Visual Studio Code. Does Sublime Text 4 have an integrated debugger? And the answer to that question is no. There's a package that you can use to do stuff with it, and I believe the developers have indicated that that's probably not something that's going to happen. I can't remember exactly. To be honest, I've spent so much time working on highly multi-threaded, multi-system stuff where using GDB or any sort of debugger is a trial because the number of threads is mind-boggling. We're talking double digits, so dialing in on the one that you want or just seeing a thread list that's full of pthread weights, we just sort of got out of the habit of that, using a debugger for all but the most complex and hairy of issues. I mean, I suppose. I say I'm not a fan of Docker per se. I like the general idea of it. I don't like how when I tell Docker Desktop to run on this system, it tells me Docker Desktop is starting, and then 3 to 5 minutes later it tells me it started, and then it tells me that the Linux backend didn't start, and then it tells me that the Linux backend is now started, and then when I do a Docker PS, it tells me that the daemon's not running, even though the daemon is running because it just said that it started, and then I do Docker restart, and then everything is okay, and then I try to restart the Mongo data container that I had, and for some reason it's decided that it can no longer access the files that it wrote the last time I ran the container. I'm sure it's solving a lot of problems, but it's causing me more problems than it's actually solving, in large part because we don't have the time to actually dig into fiddling with it. And I don't think it's generally a good fit for some of the stuff that we're actually doing. That's sort of a work-related thing, though. I think that the idea of creating an application in such a way that someone who's not me can put it into a Docker container, and someone who's not me can use Kubernetes to deploy it and have multiple instances and configure it and load balance it, I think all of that stuff is super awesome. I just think I don't want to be the one that has to do it. But it all comes down to preference and experience and time, right? Because it's probably great. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that it is. We've never really had the time to sit down and go through it in any great deal and learn stuff. It's all by the seat of your pants trying to make this thing do this thing, and maybe that's not even the thing that you want it to do. That's not conducive to a pleasant experience. But it is the wave of the future. I don't know that I would use it specifically to be able to compile something in like a Linux container from Windows in the manner that you suggested, unless it's hella faster for that than it seems to be for anything I've used thus far. Although I guess those sorts of comparisons aren't entirely fair because this particular laptop isn't as powerful as it could be. Ironically, we've been using Docker, and when we finally started to come to terms with being able to use it, they decided that we were going to be deploying with something completely different than Docker Compose, when I just finally figured out what the hell it was doing. I think I'm using Hyper-V currently on this particular system. Based on the number of times I've seen a dialog box telling me that the Hyper-V threading manager is now started. Is Terminus better than a REPL? Well, I think so. I'm assuming he was talking about Sublime REPL, since that's the main comparison to make. And something like that was the genesis for a video that I did recently on the channel as well. How are we doing for time here? Oh my, we've gone over the 2-hour time limit. We're just having a fun time chatting back and forth and or dissing on Docker. That might be a cool name for a podcast. We should do a podcast about Docker and how it's handy for some stuff and revolutionary for some stuff. And then for other stuff, it's just the meme where you go, yeah, if we were on Twitter right now, I have an emote for that. The main claim to fame that I like to call out for that is I needed to set up a Mongo server locally to test something, and I was very quickly and easily able to craft a Docker command that would spin it up in a container in a fraction of the time it would have taken to do it in any other way, and it worked absolutely flawlessly. I had it set to mount a local partition and store all of its collection information there, so that because I knew I was going to have to restart it, and I didn't want it to be transient and part of the image because that would make it go away. And I discovered the very first time that I had to stop and restart the image that in fact does not work, because some argument that you provide to it makes it write files in a way that they can be mounted when it's first started, but not other times. So I basically had to throw that whole thing away and figure out how to create a Docker Compose file to set up a volume to do the same thing, which stopped me from being able to store it in a location where I knew where it was, which also made me sad. It was a fraught problem. Also, I spend more time than I care to admit fixing my hard drive because it's running drastically out of space. Can Terminus replace Sublime REPL? How to install this? That's an example of a question that's not as helpful as it could be. I gotta say, I mean, I'm complaining about it because in some fashion I'm an older guy, and that's kind of my way, because that's not how things worked when I was a kid. I will say that while it was frustrating at the time, I do love that kind of puzzle. So there was a part of me that was enjoying trying to crack the nut of why is it that if I pass this single command line argument to Docker, whatever default it uses to figure out how to mount the volume makes it mounted in a way that it doesn't work if you restart it again. And I'd have to do it to see what the weird error message was. But if I create a Docker Compose file and don't provide any arguments to it except to say, I want to make a volume named this and mount this, then whatever defaults that uses, that does allow it to use. What's the deal with that? I was never able to figure that out. It was kind of frustrating to look through the documentation because the Docker documentation seems to assume that you already know how to use Docker and you just need to have a refresher. So it's full of terms, and I was just going back and forth in a loop of 3 or 4 documents being like, which one of these is supposed to actually explain what the hell is going on here? But yes, I do love that. Yeah, exactly, right? Bind mounts versus volumes was like a whole thing. And it was sort of explained, but also sort of not explained. If I had had the time to dig into it, that would be a different thing. But it was, one of those. So you're going to be doing a demonstration for people in 40 minutes, and the demonstration's going to need to be set up. Are you good to go? And I realize, oh no, my Mongo's not started. And oh no, my Mongo is not going to allow me to reuse the data that it is already there. Just like, so, I'm fully mea culpaing user error on that particular part, but it could be a little bit clearer. As I like to think of these sorts of things, a good standard, such as it is for any sort of technology or thing that's revolutionary or supposed to be revolutionary, is if you were to go to the website for this thing and look at it, does it say in very plain, simple terms, this is why this is good. It does this thing, it does this thing, it replaces this thing, this is better, these are the reasons why you should use it? Or is it a whole bunch of synergistic this, that, and the others aimed solely at the marketing department of a large corporation that's looking to add more corporate buzzwords to their own stuff? And if it's that latter one, I kind of want to give it a pass because it kind of seems like it doesn't have the technical focus that I, as a technical guy, would like to see. So the 2 big things that I can think of that off the top of my head is Docker and Kafka. I think Kafka was one of them. I can't quite remember now. It's been a while since I looked into that too. When you use a bind mount, a file or directory on the host machine is mounted into a container. The file or directory is referenced by its absolute path. By contrast, when you use a volume, a new directory is created. Yeah, now see, here's the thing. I was doing something like that, but what I was specifically telling it is I wanted to do it with that second one you mentioned there, when you use a volume, but I wanted to specifically point it at a specific directory so that I could go inside of it. And it did it from the command line when I started it initially. The whole container started up. It created the folder in the place I told it to create. It observably put all of the files that you would expect to see inside of a Docker or inside of a Mongo database in there. But trying to start it a second time, when it looked at the files in that location, it decided it wasn't able to load that because of something, right? I wish I could remember what it was, because it was very much a shake a fist at the sky. And essentially, I got it to do the exact same thing as I was already doing, but it seemed to me that the difference was I let it decide where it was going to create the directory instead of saying, please put it in this place where I'll be able to see where it is, which was for no reason other than I just wanted to have all of the project stuff in one place. But they might well be. Yeah, I mean, this is the situation in which we live, right? There's so much stuff. Generic startup websites, indeed. Are you familiar? I can't even remember the name. There's a Weird Al song that is the perfect epitomization of this. That's a style pastiche of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. It's called Mission Statements. If you've never heard it, I would recommend it. And no, I watched the video that you shared, but I didn't look up the software. No, I've been busy doing a bunch of other stuff. I do have to look into that though. The whoops. Yeah, I would sorely love to be able to play those games again in any capacity, and that seems like it would be a cooler thing than actually trying to figure out. I was absolutely blown away by the. It reminded me of two things. One is when Guitar Hero 3 was first out, I think like the hardest song in it was like Through the Fire and the Flames by Dragon Force, if I remember correctly. And watching YouTube videos of people like 100%ing that was like ridiculous. But that's one thing that it reminded me of. And if I'm remembering it correctly, the video that you shared, it was mostly the sound of the person playing and not the sound of the song that they were actually playing against. So it was just hearing the clack of the guitar, which totally reminded me of the people whose name I don't know off the top of my head that make YouTube videos where they take music videos and remove the music and you just see the video and the sound that the people are making, which made me laugh too. But that was like a ridiculous level of finger agility. My God. Beat Saber, that's the VR thing, isn't it? I'll tell you this. There's a series of games for the Game Boy, the 3DS, I believe. Yeah. Called Theatrhythm, which is basically Final Fantasy, but as a rhythm game. It's actually oddly compelling. I have heard a lot of good stuff about Beat Saber. I think the thing that would stop me from getting VR is that I wear glasses, and I hear that that is something that is fraught with peril. And VR systems seem to be prohibitively expensive. I would probably buy myself a super cool computer and a bunch of monitors before I would buy something like that. I have a feeling I'd be the sort of person that gets motion sick or something. Oh, you have an Oculus Quest, do you? A Quest 2 or just an original? Or am I remembering that incorrectly? I've heard a lot about that in general from one of Joel Duggan, who's a podcaster. One of the podcasts he's on is a Minecraft podcast. And they talked from time to time about his wanting one of those. I can't remember which one of them is better. $300 doesn't sound all that bad. What's the gold standard for VR right now? Is it like HTC Vive or what have you? I can't remember. I used to watch videos of people playing stuff in VR, but I'm not necessarily anti-Facebook per se. I have a Facebook account. The Index. Ouch. I heard a story recently about somebody who got a VR system and realized that couldn't wear their glasses in it and everything was blurry, so they could only play for so long and then they would get a headache. But it was actually possible to get prescription lenses for the goggles that had to come from Germany. Huh, interesting. I am not sure which one that particular person was using, but wherever it was, the replacement lenses shipped out of Germany, which took a while. Oh, do you have issues in general with things not being available there in Australia, Ben? Or taking a very long time to eventually arrive? The last time I heard anybody talk about Australia was a good, oh, good gosh, it's my coworker went there for a vacation with his one of his kids. I think he only had one at the time, who's now 19, and he must have been like two, so like 17 years ago. They went on a vacation to Australia with a toddler, so that was apparently fun on the plane. But he had a lot to say about the relative prices of things at the time. And like how much more expensive games seemed to be there. Oh, gotcha. Pardon me. I'm going to press this button here because we have been going for quite some time. We're going for 2.5 hours. I've been loving this chat, but it is time to move on. But never fear, because I will be streaming tomorrow on Twitch as well at this exact same time from this exact same setup. And we're going to be working on some bots and such. So just as one last reminder for things, because I did not set it up, for anybody that might be lurking in the background there, people that haven't been participating in the chat, feel free to do so. As you can see, we don't really have any set schedule for what we talk about in these things. It's just about chatting about Sublime, answering questions, just hanging out with the community in general. I love hanging out and talking to you guys. Makes the software development streams on Twitch more chatty and less codey at times, but it is a blast of an experience. Remember, one last reminder for the night, there is a giveaway going on right now. If you'd like a copy of Sublime Text or Sublime Merge, if you have our license already for, say, Sublime Text 3 and you know it's going to expire and you're going to have to pay an upgrade, maybe you might want one of these new ones, you can jump on in and perhaps win yourself a copy. The link will take you to a place that tells you all about what is going on. But the general gist is tweet me, follow me on Twitter, mention me in a tweet, use the hashtag Sublime Text Fanatic or Sublime Merge Fanatic, depending on which or both of these you'd like to use. You can do one tweet for each of those every day for the entire thing. Every tweet you make that is eligible is one more chance to win yourself a copy of one of these awesome pieces of software, which were graciously donated by Sublime HQ. Is that still the case even now? The Australian dollar. I mean, that was like a long ways back that he was there. Well, I guess even historically, the Canadian dollar isn't super great either. We had a good run for a little while there, but then it cycled back to the sad times, such as it is. We're going to call the stream. Thank you so much, everybody, for thank you guys for that. I'm not sure, you weren't here at the beginning, but I was absolutely blown away by that show of support and by the anonymous benefactor who just out of the blue messaged and said, "I love what you're doing. I'd like to help you give away some licenses to Sublime Text." I mean, I'm just some boob sitting in a room trying to help people as best as he can, and the fact that the company and the community here on YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and everywhere is so supportive of all of this stuff is just absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah, I don't really even have the words to say exactly how much I appreciate that level of support and recognition for what could possibly be an unhealthy obsession with just helping people for no readily explicable reason. I mean, as I mentioned this in a prior stream, I started using Sublime because it was cool and I wanted to learn stuff about it. And I got into the forum and I found that I really loved helping people with problems and using it as an excuse to learn more about Sublime myself and to help other people enjoy this astounding piece of software. So super awesome. Again, yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for showing up. Remember, live streams every Tuesday here on YouTube, Wednesdays and Fridays on Twitch. Same time slots for all of them. They should all be scheduled up. And if you want to go back over this, there's a playlist on the main channel for Sublime Text Live because this replay will go unlisted after roughly 24 hours, give or take 12 hours in either direction. Until the next one, remember to get your entries in and share the Sublime Text love for the giveaway. And we'll see you in the next stream, perhaps tomorrow as well on Twitch. Have a good night, everybody. I wish I had a cooler key for pressing this button.